Dr. L Leach. He presented last year when he started his first attempt, or his first pilot project with his sports science students. Dr. L Leach has been a long-standing permanent employee of the University of the Western Cape. He teaches first, second, and third and fourth year students. He's adopted primarily face-to-face format for lectures, but has also introduced a number of assessments using MCQs, review questions, and case studies. And he is a man of many talents. He doesn't just lecture, he also plays football. He's actively participating in squash and mountain hiking for many, many years. So, Dr. L Leach, his presentation title is Student Tracking and Monitoring of Academic Performance. Thank you, Dr. L Leach.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm going to get into it. I've got a bit of information, and I'm stressing because I've got so much to do and so little time, so if you don't mind. It's actually on student profiling. So the first part is going to be a profile on students. I'll explain that to you how it's done, and then the second part, how we track the students through the semester. So this is the module information. It's SRE 217, which is called Exercise Physiology. It's a second year module. There's 98 students that are enrolled this year. In terms of background, they come to me having done fundamentals of exercise physiology first year. In the third year, they go to advanced exercise physiology with Prof. Bassett, and you'll hear from her later on. She's also one of the presenters. So in terms of the profile of the students, so I came up with the idea of how do I want to get to know the students a bit better. So I did a self-constructed, non-validated questionnaire, which was 5 categories, 4 questions per category. There were a total of 20 questions. It's a self-rating survey of 3 categories. The responses were 1 if you disagreed with the statement, 2 if you were undecided, and 3 if you agreed. The instruction was, you please answer these statements as truthfully as possible in order to understand yourself better. The hint I gave them was generally the answer that comes to you instinctively is often the appropriate one. So the questions were in 5 categories. The first category dealt with academic background and performance. So some of the questions, I'm not going to go to all of them, but for instance at the first one is, as far back as I can remember, I've been among the top 10 students in the class. So if you, 1 if you disagree, 2 if you were undecided, and 3 if you agree with the statement. And there were other questions as well with regard to this. The second group was my personal work ethic. The questionnaire was, I pay attention to detail in my academic work, especially tests and assignments. And the other questions as well. And then the third category was academic support. If I have difficulty with any module, I know exactly what support is in place to assist me. And then the fourth category was on social and academic network. I have the basic family support in order to focus on my studies. And then the last category was my career path. The degree I'm currently studying is the right one for me, and there's a list of questions as well. So those are the 20 questions that the students answered at the beginning of the semester. And so then we I profiled the students, and essentially with 3 categories. The first category was 0 to 39. And so you were classified as high risk. In other words, if you got a mark, if you had a score of less than 40, you would not qualify for the exams. And this is the academic program at UWC. So as an undergraduate first or second year student, you can qualify to write the exam with a 40%. Less than that, you don't qualify for the exam. And so I use that as a yardstick in order to classify the students on this program as well. So when I profile them, the scores they got is out of 60. So up to 39, you are high risk. From 40 to 49, you were seen as moderate risk. And from 50 to 60 on this questionnaire, you were seen as relatively low risk. And so those who are moderate risk, you qualified for the exam, but you're under pressure because you have to make up the difference to get your 50 to pass. the actual module. And those who had 50 or more, I see them as low risk, so they qualified for the exam, and I thought they were in control of the module. So they should have no problems in terms of performance. So I'm giving an example. You have 4 students. Those are the student numbers. The first student scored 46 on the profile, and they were classified as moderate risk. The second student got 0, probably didn't attend any of didn't come to the profiling. So we classified this person as high risk. The third student had 36, also high risk, and the fourth student had 56, which was low risk. And I went down this class of 98 students, and I went about classifying them into the various categories. So overall, what happened was the pre-course student profile that I got from these 98 students, 55 of them, or 56%, were seen as high risk, very, very high number. 29% were at moderate risk, and 15% were at low risk. I was under pressure now. How do I turn this thing around to get these students to pass this module? 50% being low risk means that 50% of them will pass this module. I'm going to get kicked out of this university in no time because this throughput value is just too scary. So the students did on a weekly basis, they did this range of assessments. They had class MCQs. So before each of my lectures, I have an MCQ pre-test, pre-class, for about 15 minutes, 5 minutes into the lecture. At the end of the lecture, 5 minutes at the end of the lecture, and 5 minutes into the changeover, they also do a post-test MCQ. So these are the class MCQs. They do this twice a week on a Tuesday and Thursday. There's a weekly MCQ that they do, which is once a week, but they do it for the entire week. So it's also like Dr. Brevet, that they have unlimited attempts, and they can do this just for a week, and then it closes. The MCQ is closed. They get weekly review questions, which basically is homework that they take home with them. They do this, they submit this every Monday. And then they have weekly tutorials, which they have every Thursday, and here they get a chance to watch video clips and to discuss this in the class and get marks. Each of these are 4 marks. So, in terms of monitoring students' progress now from week 1 until the end of the semester, week 14. So the same 4 students, when they were profiled for the questionnaires, the first was moderate, the second 2 were high risk, and the third was low risk. For the very first week, at the end of the first week, the assessments that they did their profile change. The moderate risk person had 30% of the first week, changed to high risk, even more scary. The high risk person still remained 0 after the first week's assessment, stayed on high risk. The high risk person initially scored 80% after the first week and changed to low risk. I felt a sigh of relief here. The low risk person for me, which was scary, scored 35% and changed from low risk to high risk. So there goes my bubble was burst. So this is the comment I put behind the students who had high risk. Please come see me. We need to sort this thing out. I think that was the mistake I made. So, what was the performance of the class overall? So, with the pre-course assessment, as I said, 55% scored high risk, 28% scored moderate risk, 50% scored low risk. After week 1, the situation changed somewhat. So the 55 who had scored high risk, after the first week it dropped down to 42%, so there was some improvement, about 13% improvement. Moderate risk also dropped down quite a bit, almost by 22%, and the low risk performance actually increased quite substantially. So this was very, very encouraging. So after the first week, something was working with the students. At least the profile was changing. What had happened by week 14 at the end of the semester? So the risk status is relatively fixed. That stays from the time they were profiled. So in week 1, we had the students' performances. In week 14, what had happened to these students? So student number 1, who was moderate risk, by the end of the semester stayed at moderate risk, not too bad. The high risk student, who had 0% initially, had at the end of the semester 28% remained on high risk. And the student who was high risk initially changed to a low risk at the end of the semester, and the person who was low risk remained on low risk. So I saw a very, very good encouraging profile presenting here, is that at least from the high risk overall performance, it was changing more towards a low risk by the end of the semester. In terms of percentages, what had changed? The high risk percentage was at the beginning 56%. At the end, it dropped down to 18%. Very, very encouraging. Moderate risk remained relatively the same, 29% and 26% from the start to the end of the module, but the low risk was very, very good. From 15% it improved up to 56%, which I thought was very, very good. Probably I was still very concerned about the 18 the students who were still at high risk. So overall what had happened, if you look at the blue column here, the very, very first one, so we can see here these students who were seen as high risk, the first one, you can see very nice it's going down towards the end of the semester, which I thought very, very nice. And those who were high risk, sorry, were low risk initially, this moved very, very nicely towards being one of the highest at the end of so we saw the high risk coming down and the low risk going up towards the end of the semester, which was very, very encouraging for me. This for me was still a problem. These students, there's 18 students here at the end of the semester, which was basically on Monday. These students don't qualify to write my exam. So already I've got an 18% failure rate in my module already, which is 20%, which is still very, very discouraging. So this is exactly what we are faced with. 80% of the students do not qualify. 26% of them do qualify, but they're under pressure now because their mark is between 40 and 50%. And they must now make up for this in the exam. And the difference is here is that we use 60% of the CA mark towards the final mark. And so these are students who are not very academically strong. So for them to get 60% in the exam to make up for this deficit is going to be very, very taxing on these students. And the low risk, I'm assuming, is going to be very, very good in the exam as well, and they'll do quite well. So overall, what do I expect to see happening at the end of this module? The low risk, 56% of them will pass this module, I hope. It will be very, very good. The moderate risk, if I can get about 15% of them to pass this module, it'll bring my stats up to about, say, 70%. I think I'll still be able to keep my job by next year, so this should be okay. The 18%, unfortunately, that is something that I have to work on and see how we can bring this down to a better score in the future. What do the students think about this module? In terms of the feedback, I asked them the question. First one, do you find the classes interesting? It was this number one, being very, very strongly agreed, and number 5, they disagreed strongly. So it does lean more towards the agreed side of the scale, but still a number of students were really unsure about the interest of how exciting the classes were. A lot of them just disagreed with the fact that the classes they found it to be interesting. This question asked them, did you find the teaching strategy in this course to work for you? And so yes, the biggest column there is the ones that they do agree the strategy does work for them, but you can see quite a number of students as well disagree that this strategy doesn't work for them. What were the actual comments about this? So I asked him, what did you enjoy most about this class? So a comment, for instance, was the content was delivered in a number of formats which I found incredibly helpful as I learned better through visual aid and verbal communication. So these were some of the comments. MCQ tests before and after class, they found this to be something that was quite enjoyable. And the tutorial questions that we had to answer in class, they found this to be quite enjoyable. So I asked them, what did you enjoy least about the class? The limit on the MCQs, they asked me to increase the time. Other things like the MCQs and review questions every class, every week, this was too much work for them. And they said sometimes the workload in terms of tutorial videos, MCQs, review questions was overwhelming. But at the same time, this is positive as well. It keeps me on my toes. So, a little bit of good and bad there. What change would you make in order to improve this course? The student says, I think more time to really fully understand the module and not just with the aim to pass it. I'm pretty happy with the course as is. Someone else says, reduce the chapters or reduce the length of each chapter. And then we have to be taught first what will be on the class MCQ. So this is some of the comments. Thank you very much.
The questions at the end, there seem to be very few responses.
I just took a sample. I couldn't put all of their responses, but I just did a random selection on some of the students' responses.
I was talking about the bar charts. There were only about, I think, 28 responses out of about 98 for the bar charts.
Right. Sorry, you asked?
So was there a particular reason for that? Or
so I didn't get the question?
The bar charts you showed with the questions.
Right.
There were only about 28 of the 98 people who responded to that.
Yes, that's right. So why there's such a low response rate from students? Is that the question? Yeah. That's the very good question. I don't know. Students they don't participate much. And it's online, so I told them, and it's still open now as well. It's still open. They can continue to complete the module evaluation. I'm hoping maybe they've got the same marks now on Monday, so maybe they'll be encouraged, to give me more comments on that. So let's wait and see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you release the course evaluation a week before the classes end or 2 weeks, because from experience to release stuff in the week of when students have tests and assignments due, they're not going to fill in the questionnaire. So normally 3 weeks before classes end, it's a good time to release the survey and just to continue to remind them to fill it in.
The module evaluation I release at the end of the third term. So as soon as they finish the first term's work, the first 7 weeks, they've got an idea because I've come basically all the evaluations, and the fourth term is the repetition of what we did in the third term. So we've got an entire term to do the MCQs, the module evaluation. So it's 7 weeks essentially, and it's still open today. And I'm still getting only 28 responses. I must give them some kind of incentive, like every time if you do this, I'll give you an extra 5%. Maybe that would be a bit more encouraging as well. But it's long, yeah, it's quite a bit of time.
Free cell phone.
Free cell phone, yeah, that's a cell phone. Yeah. I need a sponsor on board, maybe the university can help out. So for me, next year's how to take this forward is, I'm disappointed in the fact that 18 students don't qualify. For me, it is a reflection of me as a lecturer, and it's not nice to have those kind of stats, and it's something I wanted to look at and see how do I turn this around.
It's actually a good base level to maybe adapt your math schedule, maybe to assist those higher risk students to giving them more MCQs or more chances to gain marks, and it will benefit the lower risk students to give them also ample opportunities to push their marks even higher. It's something you could consider.
Yeah, on a weekly basis, I think the students for this module, they'll spend on average about 20 hours a week on this module compared to the other modules, because Monday they've got their weekly MCQs, they've got their review questions, Tuesday is class MCQs, Thursday is the tutorial, Thursday is also class MCQs. By the time the week is over and done, these guys are exhausted. And doing this for 14 weeks, I think it's burnout, literally. But for me, it's about, if I only give them a limited number of assessments, I've got very little marks to play around with. So by the end of the semester, I'm looking at how do I get these students to pass this module with varied assessments, and the more assessments I can give them, it gives me a lot more to draw from to give them a qualifying mark for the module. And so you're in this catch-2 situation, kind of a crisis, in the sense that the more you give them, the more they are pressurized, and they're burning out in the process. But the less you give them, it's the fuel will qualify for the modules. And so how do you balance these two out? So I don't know. It's and I think the third week of this semester, I have been doing group work, and so I asked the students. Some of you have very good marks in some of the assessments, and I noticed that the good students gravitate together, and so they were performing consistently well across all the assessments. So I said, look, clearly you guys are doing quite well, and you don't need to work in a group because all of you are well in this group, doing well in this group. My suggestion to you then is, could we break you up and at least take 2 of you and put you in groups that are not performing really, really well. So you've got a group of 4 low-performing students and a group of 4 well-performing students, and we break them up into 2 high-performing and 2 low-performing. And so you've got more or less a balance. And the objection was, the student says that if you do this, we're going to take you to the rector. That's coming from the high-performing students. They said, those students don't want to work. That's the comment that the students gave me. You know, the low-performing students don't want to work, and we're not going to join up with them. So it was a bit unpleasant, you know, to get that kind of response. But this is what the students were saying. They were saying, you know, that you have to leave us alone. You know, we choose our partners, you know, who benefit us in the long run.
Can't you choose the groups next year? And you put them in groups.
I don't know exactly. But what I can probably do is look at their profile, and then from the profile say, okay, let's then decide. I'm hoping not to have too many fights in the process. You know, you may have a lot of scars at the end of the semester. That we'll see. Thank you very much. It was nice. Good.